I left my Bluetooth speaker on by accident. That's the only reason I heard any of it. It was a Tuesday evening in early March. I'd been out back on the porch listening to a baseball game, old habit. Something my wife Vera used to tease me about. She'd say, "Miles, you're the only person left in America who still listens to baseball on the radio." And she wasn't wrong, but I liked the voices. After she passed, the house got very quiet, and voices helped. I came inside to get a glass of water, set the speaker on the kitchen counter, and went to wash my hands in the bathroom down the hall. The game was still playing. I could hear the announcer faintly through the walls. And then I heard something else. My son's voice. My son Garrett. No, wait. I need to back up. I need to tell you who these people are first, because none of this makes sense without knowing who they are. My name is Miles Coughlin. I'm 67 years old. I spent 31 years as a civil engineer for the county, mostly infrastructure, bridges, drainage systems, the unglamorous stuff that holds everything together. I retired 4 years ago, 2 months after Vera's diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer. She was gone in 11 months. I have 2 children. My daughter Nora is the older one. She lives in Portland with her husband and their 2 kids. We talk on the phone every Sunday. She sends cards on my birthday. She is, in every sense, a good daughter. And I want to say that clearly before I say anything else, because this story is not about her. This story is about my son Joel. Joel is 38. He works in finance, or he did, I'll explain that later. He married a woman named Priscilla about 6 years ago. Priscilla is the kind of person who makes you feel slightly underdressed no matter what you're wearing. Not unkind exactly, just measuring. Every time she looked at me, I felt like a number being calculated. They have a boy. His name is Sam. He's 4 years old and he still calls me Pop Pop and runs at my shins when I walk through their front door. And I want you to understand that Sam is the reason this story doesn't end the way it almost did. After Vera died, I sold the house we'd lived in for 22 years. It was too big for one person and too full of her. I bought a smaller place, a 3-bedroom Craftsman on Dunmore Street, in the same town, close enough that I could still see my doctor, still go to my church, still have coffee with my neighbor Al on Saturday mornings. I paid cash for it, $340,000. No mortgage, mine outright. About a year after I moved in, Joel called me, said things were tight, said the market had been brutal, said his firm was restructuring, said Priscilla had taken a step back from her job to be home with Sam. He wasn't asking for money directly. He never does. Joel has always been good at circling what he wants without quite landing on it the way a hawk circles before diving. I gave them $40,000. I didn't think much about it. He was my son. 6 months later, he called again. This time it was more specific. He had an opportunity, a real estate investment, he said. Very low risk, the kind of thing that doesn't come around often. He needed a cosigner on a short-term loan just to get it started. He'd pay me back in 8 months. I said I'd think about it. I didn't say yes. I said I'd think about it. What happened next is the part I still have trouble putting into words. Not because it's complicated, but because it isn't. It's the simplest, ugliest thing. While I was thinking about it, while I was weighing my son's voice against my own gut feeling, Joel and Priscilla drove to my house on a Sunday afternoon with Sam. And we had lunch, and after lunch, Priscilla said she'd made some lemon cake. And while she was cutting it in the kitchen, Joel spread some papers on the dining room table and said, "Dad, I just need your signature in 3 places. It's nothing complicated. The lawyer already looked it over." I was tired. I'd taken my afternoon medication 20 minutes before. The blood pressure pills sometimes make me foggy for an hour or so, and Joel knows this. He has seen it. I'm not saying that's why he came on a Sunday afternoon after a big lunch. I'm just saying that's when he came. I signed 3 places. The pen was already uncapped. Joel collected the papers quickly, folded them into his jacket, and Priscilla came out with the lemon cake on a nice plate, and Sam climbed into my lap, and we sat there in the afternoon light like a normal family having a normal Sunday. They left around 4 o'clock. I walked him to the car. I held Sam while Joel buckled him in, and my grandson patted my cheek with both hands the way he does, and I thought, this is good. This is what matters. I went back inside. I sat in my chair. I fell asleep. That was a Sunday, March 3rd. I found out what I'd signed on a Tuesday. 2 days later, I was out on the porch with the baseball game. I came in for water. I left the Bluetooth speaker on, and as I stood at the bathroom sink, I heard my son's voice cutting clearly through the house, because apparently Joel had called the house number instead of my cell, and the call had connected to the speaker by mistake. Or maybe I'd accidentally answered. I still don't know exactly how it happened. I only know that I could hear him. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Priscilla. He must have hit the wrong contact, or she picked up on a shared account, or it doesn't matter. What matters is what I heard. Paperwork's all solid. Donovan said the transfer would post by end of week. Priscilla's voice laughing softly. He didn't even read it, did he? Joel. He never reads anything. You know how he gets after his pills. I could have had him sign a blank check. Priscilla, still laughing. So that's it? It's done? Joel, it's done. The equity's ours. He can keep living there, we just. And then I must have made a sound, or moved, because the line went dead. I stood in my bathroom holding the edge of the sink. The faucet was still running. In the kitchen, the baseball announcer was describing a foul ball, completely indifferent to what had just happened in my life. I turned off the faucet. I walked into the kitchen and I stopped the game. I stood in the silence for a long time. I am an engineer. I spent 31 years solving problems that other people didn't see coming. I know how load-bearing structures fail. I know that the collapse is never sudden. It's always slow, quiet, happening inside the walls long before anything visible gives way. And I know that when you discover a structural problem, the worst thing you can do is panic and start pulling things apart without a plan. You assess, you document, you figure out exactly what's been compromised, then you fix it. So I didn't call Joel that night. I didn't call Nora. I didn't call anyone. I sat down at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, and I started writing down everything I remembered about what I'd signed. I called my lawyer the next morning. Her name is Sheila Marsh. She handled my home purchase. She's been my attorney for 15 years. I told her everything. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "Miles, I need you to come in today. Not tomorrow, today." I was in her office by 11. What I had signed, it turned out, was a deed of partial equity transfer. Joel had structured it so that he and Priscilla held 51% equity in my home. Not ownership exactly. I could still live there, but they controlled the majority stake. If I died, or if I ever agreed to sell, they would receive the majority of the proceeds. And there was a clause, buried on page 4, in the section I would have skimmed if I hadn't been foggy for medication, that gave them the authority to initiate a sale under certain conditions. The language was deliberately vague about what those conditions were. Sheila called it predatory. She also said it wasn't impossible to challenge, especially given the circumstances under which it was signed. She used the word undue influence. She said I should not let Joel know that I knew. That was the hardest part. Harder than any of it. I have a grandson who calls me Pop Pop. I have a son I coached in Little League, whose college applications I help with, whose wedding I walked into crying before Vera even made it to her seat. I have a son who sat across a lemon cake from me 2 days ago and talked about the weather. I went home and I did not call Joel. What I did instead, I called my neighbor Al. Al is a retired county sheriff, 71 years old, drinks his coffee black, and has no patience for anything he considers foolish. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, which is unusual for Al, and when I finished he said, "Miles, you need to let Sheila run point on this. Don't touch the situation. Don't tip your hand. Give her what she needs and let the process work." I asked him what I should do when Joel called. He said, "Answer it. Be normal. Don't lie. Just don't tell the truth yet. Joel called that Thursday. Asked how I was doing. Asked if I'd seen the game. His voice was perfectly even, warm even, and I understood, with a kind of cold clarity I hadn't expected, that he'd been practicing this, that the easy warmth in his voice was something he'd rehearsed, perhaps for months. I told him I was fine. I told him the weather had been nice. I asked about Sam. He said Sam had learned to ride a tricycle. He said Sam had learned to ride a tricycle. He said Sam had asked about Pop Pop that morning. I said that was wonderful. My voice didn't shake. Over the next 3 weeks, Sheila worked quietly. She pulled the full document. She contacted Donovan, the real estate contact Joel had mentioned on the phone, and discovered that Joel had already been in preliminary conversations about listing the property. Not immediately, but soon. The plan, as best as Sheila could reconstruct it, was to wait 6 to 8 months, then approach me about downsizing, and if I resisted, to use the equity clause as leverage. There's a particular kind of grief that doesn't feel like sadness at first. It feels like trying to do math with numbers that keep changing. You keep working the problem, rerunning the figures, because you cannot make yourself accept that the answer is what it is. My son had looked at the house Vera and I chose together, the house I paid for with 30 years of careful work, and he had seen a number. That's all, a number he wanted. The third week, Sheila told me she was ready to file. I asked her to wait 2 more days. I needed to do one thing first. I drove to Joel's house on a Saturday morning. Unannounced, when Priscilla answered the door, something moved across her face, very fast, barely there, and I recognized it. She hadn't expected me. She'd expected a phone call. She'd expected the version of me that didn't know. I said I'd come to take Sam to the park. She couldn't say no. There was no reason to say no, and she knew it. Sam came to the door in his coat already half on and inside out, and he grabbed my hand and pulled me down the front steps, and I heard Priscilla calling Joel's name as we walked to the car. At the park, Sam ran for the swings immediately. I pushed him for a long time, not thinking about much, just watching his face when the swing went up, the way his eyes went wide every time like it was new. Kids feel things so completely. They haven't learned yet to brace themselves. I thought about what kind of man I wanted to be in this situation. Not what I was entitled to feel. Not what I had a right to do. What kind of man? Vera would have said, handle it cleanly, Miles. Don't make a mess you can't live with. I pushed Sam on the swings for an hour. Then I took him for ice cream, and he got it on his jacket, and I cleaned it off with a napkin, and he looked up at me very seriously and said, Pop, Pop, you fixed it. Yeah, buddy. I'm trying. I took him home. Joel was standing in the driveway when we pulled up. His face was controlled, but his jaw was tight. He shook Sam's hand away and sent him inside, and then he looked at me. I said, Come by my house Monday morning, we need to talk. He knew. I could see it. He didn't say anything. I got in my car and I drove home. Sheila filed on Monday afternoon. Joel arrived at my house at 9 in the morning, an hour before I'd asked him to come. He let himself in with the key I'd given him 3 years ago. He came into the kitchen while I was still drinking my coffee, and he sat down across from me and started talking. Something about the investment, something about how it was for the family's future, something about how he'd been trying to protect me without making me feel like a burden. I let him talk. I'm good at listening. 31 years of project meetings taught me to listen without reacting, to let people reveal the full shape of what they're saying before I respond. When he finished, I put my coffee cup down and I said, Joel, I heard your phone call, the one on Tuesday, March 5th. The speaker was on. I heard everything. The kitchen got very quiet. Sheila filed papers this morning, I said. The equity transfer is being challenged on grounds of undue influence and improper execution. There's a question about the medication timing. There's documentation. It will most likely be reversed. Joel's face went through several things at once. I watched it happen. I'm not here to fight you, I said. I'm not going to take you to court if we don't have to. But I need you to understand something. I'm not the old man who signs things without reading them. I was. I let myself be. That's over. He started to say something about the money he'd needed, about the pressure he'd been under, about Priscilla, I held up my hand. I know you needed help. You could have asked me. I would have helped you. I helped you before. He looked at the table. But you didn't ask, I said. You planned, and there's a difference. We sat in the kitchen for a long time after that. The kind of quiet that's heavy but not violent. Outside, a neighbor's dog was barking at something. A car went by. Normal Tuesday sounds in a life that felt like it had just been put back on its foundations, unsteadily, but back. I did not tell him I forgave him. I wasn't there yet. I don't know that I'll get there. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow thing, like drainage work, unglamorous and mostly invisible, and I'm still early in the process. What I told him was this. Sam is going to grow up watching how you handle this. Whatever comes next, whatever you decide to do, he'll remember it. Kids remember more than we think they do. Joel left without answering. He walked out the front door and got in his car and sat in the driveway for a long time before he drove away. 3 weeks later, with Sheila present, he signed the documents reversing the equity transfer. He did it without conditions. He didn't look at me while he signed. Priscilla did not come. She sent word through Joel that she was sorry. I don't know what that's worth yet. The house is mine again. Fully, cleanly mine. I still have the lemon cake plate. Priscilla left it when they came for lunch that day. It's a nice plate, white with a blue rim. I use it sometimes when Al comes over for coffee. I don't think about it too much. It's just a plate. Sam still calls me Pop Pop. He came over last Sunday with Nora's kids, and they all ran around the backyard and nobody got seriously hurt, which is about all you can ask. Sam found a roly-poly bug under the garden stones and carried it around in his cupped hands for an hour like it was treasure. Joel and I don't talk much right now. We're in the part of this that doesn't have a name yet. Not estranged, not reconciled, just adjacent. Existing in the same family without quite touching. Maybe that changes. Maybe it doesn't. I'm 67 years old. I've lived through enough to know that some things repair and some things scar over, and either way, you wake up the next morning and the house needs its gutters cleaned and the coffee needs to be made and life continues whether or not you've resolved every feeling you have about it. What I know is this. I spent 31 years building things that hold weight. I know what stress fractures look like before they become failures. I know that maintenance matters. I know that ignoring a problem doesn't make it smaller, it makes it hidden, which is worse. I know that an old man who still reads every document, who still asks questions, who still notices when the numbers don't add up, that man is not a fool. He never was. There are 2 questions I want to leave you with. The same ones I've been sitting with for 3 months now. Would you have waited 3 weeks to act like I did? Or would you have picked up that phone the second the speaker clicked off? And if it were your child, your own child, could you look them in the eye across a kitchen table and say what needed to be said? Not in anger, not in tears, just clearly, like you meant it. I'd like to know what you think. There's something nobody tells you about getting older. People stop expecting you to fight back. I noticed it gradually. The way Joel's voice shifted when he talked to me after Vera died. Slower. Simpler. Like he was adjusting for someone who'd lost a step. Maybe I had in some ways. Grief takes things from you that don't come back exactly as they were. But it doesn't take your memory. It doesn't take 31 years of reading documents that hold weight. What I've been sitting with these past few months is the question of how it got that far in the first place. And I think the honest answer is that I let comfort make me careless. Joel came on a Sunday with Sam and lemon cake and a warm afternoon, and I chose the warmth over the caution. That's on me, not the signing. I'll never accept that the manipulation was my fault, but the general habit of trusting without verifying, of assuming that love means the same thing to every person in the room. It doesn't. It never did. Actions accumulate. Joel didn't arrive at that Sunday afternoon out of nowhere. He'd been building toward it for years in small choices, the request that circled without landing, The loan that came with conditions not mentioned up front. The way he always seemed to arrive when I was at my least sharp. None of those were accidents. And none of my choices were accidents either. The $40,000 I gave without documentation, the co-signer conversation I let drop without following up, the general posture of a father who wanted badly to believe his son was struggling rather than scheming. Every one of those choices had weight. They stacked. That's not a religious idea, it's just physics. Forces accumulate. Structures fail slowly, then suddenly. I know this. I spent my career on it. What saved me wasn't luck. It was the Bluetooth speaker, yes, but more than that, it was the 31 years of habit that kicked in when everything else wanted to shut down. Assess. Document. Don't panic. Don't pull things apart without a plan. I didn't call Joel that night because I knew that calling him would hand him the one advantage he didn't already have, knowing that I knew. Instead, I picked up a legal pad and started writing down what I remembered. That was discipline. That was the work of a mind that hadn't actually gone soft, no matter how convenient that story had been for certain people. Intelligence isn't the same as intelligence. Intelligence is what you're born with. Truancy, wisdom, is what you build by paying attention to your own failures and not looking away. I had failed to pay attention. I corrected it. That correction cost me something. The kitchen table conversation with Joel. Watching his face go through all those things at once, that cost me in a way that the equity transfer never could. Money you can reclaim. Certain images, once you have them, stay. But I don't regret sitting across from him and saying it plainly. That took something. It would have been easier to let Sheila handle all of it at a distance, to never be in the same room with him while it happened. Easier and smaller. I wanted to look my son in the eye and tell him, without anger, without theater, exactly what I knew and what I'd done about it. That was for me as much as for him. Maybe more. Sam called me last Sunday. He can't really talk on the phone yet. He mostly breathes into it and says, "Pop, pop," and then drops the phone on something hard. But he called. Joel must have dialed for him. I don't know what that means yet. I'm not in a hurry to decide.